Caroline here, remember me? Today I am going over my chili recipe. So get a pen and paper and write these ingredients down. First we start with like 1.5 tablespoons of butter. I'll try to be quieter. About the same amount of olive oil. And I'm going to use this to brown my meat. So with your meat you need at least, I say like between 2 and 3 pounds of meat. I do 2/3 of the meat is going to be beef and 1/3 is going to be pork, ground pork. And what I choose to use is the Jewel Hot Italian sausage pork because it has all the different seasonings and flavors, and so it's going to just add a lot better flavor. And I have ground beef. I really wanted to get the ground chuck, but it was so expensive. So anyway, any ground beef will do. I don't really care about the fat content because I'm going to adjust the fat later on when I decide I'm going to spoon it off of the top of the chili. So get the meat, however much you want, around 2 to 3 pounds total. I think I have a lot here, like 3 pounds, but I'll use it. So the meat, I usually have that amount of meat, like 3 pounds of meat, and then 3 cans of beans. You could do like 1 big can and 1 little can or whatever, but I like to make 3 different like colors. This is a can of pinto beans. It doesn't really matter to me what the brand is as long as you rinse it out before you use it. I have 1 can of black beans, and if you can find low sodium, it's smart to do because then I can control the amount of salt that I need to use in the whole recipe. Then this is a can of dark red kidney beans. Same thing, low sodium. You have something to say?
I'm going out for a while.
Are you going out for a while? Alright, can I have a kiss goodbye? That's okay. Don't get stage fright. You don't want to be on camera.
I'll be back.
Be careful.
Yes,
Alright, so then I have 1 large can of diced tomatoes, and in the tomato department, I'm going to put it over here so I can keep it organized. I also have some, I don't know if you can understand that because it's in a different language, but anyway, this is just tomato paste. So I'm going to squirt this into the pan in a little while. I just finished going over the ingredients. I like to have a little bit of peppers, sweet peppers. Maybe I can do it this way. Yeah. So you could add onions. Onions makes it like a really nice flavor, but to me, onions shorten the life of your dish in the refrigerator. So if you have some kind of onions in your meal, I think that it only is good in the refrigerator for like 2 or 3 days. But I avoid putting onions in because then it'll just last longer, and I can freeze some of it and use it later. That's why I'm making this. Ends up making a really big batch. I could feed a family of 4, 2 or 3 times probably. So anyway, I'm going to dice up these, and I'm only going to use half of each of them, and then I'm going to put the other half of each of them in the freezer for a different recipe. So it's good to multitask with your ingredients if you can. And I have a little bit of garlic, so I'm going to use about maybe 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. And to season everything, I'm going to use my taco seasoning. So actually, make sure that it's that's backwards. I don't know if this is going to be legible or whatever, but if you can like freeze the screen there, this is exactly the recipe that I use for my taco seasoning, or you could just use your own, it doesn't really matter, or you can use a bottle of mine if I've given it to you. If you can freeze that and then turn it, flip it. I don't understand how to flip it. Maybe my nephew can teach me. So now pause the video. You have everything written down. Go to the store, get all these ingredients, and then come back and then continue watching. Okay, so I have a pot with the butter and the oil, and I also put in both of my meats, the Italian sausage and the ground beef. And now I'm just going to turn on the fire on a kind of a high and work my butt off to break it up. This gets really loud, but I guess I probably can't do this on camera. If your kitchen is not loud, that means nothing is happening in there. So I'm going to be ashamed to make a little noise, but Not when you're filming a video. So I'll come back when this is all browned. Ooh, don't keep it on high. I said start it on high because you just want to get it going. But, you know, once you start hearing it make noise and start to fizzle and stuff, bring it down to like a high medium or medium. And just make sure you're browning it all around. You see pink spots, just keep cutting and dicing it up and flipping it and whatever you normally do. So, yeah. Okay, a little change of scenery. So, probably not my best angle, but whatever. I just want to show you to chop up the vegetables kind of like small. I don't know, whatever you want. You want big chunks of vegetables, do that. But I just want to show you how I do it. I take the cheek, you line up the knife with the two, you know, seams, basically, and you just cut off the cheek, and you kind of follow the seams along the edges. So then, you don't get this white part right here. So then you just go around, cut off the cheeks. If you're careful and slow about it, you will not have any white parts, and you will not have any seeds at the end. So, let's see if I can do this. Move these back. Alright, I don't have the best knife skills, but whatever. See that? All you have left is like a core. I mean, I can cut this off if I really want to be frugal. There you go. Anyway, there you go. And you can also cut off the bottom, but I don't like the butt, so don't eat butt. Anyway, now this part has like a little bit of weirdness to the inside. I don't know what the heck that is. See that? So, off you go into the garbage pile. I don't like that stuff. I don't like anything that looks weird or it's not supposed to be. I mean, wow, that sounded really racist or prejudiced, whatever. Anyway, in my food, when things don't look right, I don't know what to trust, so I just, whatever. Anyway, back to cutting. Go in like strips. It doesn't really matter how big or small, just try to stick to the same uniform size as you go through. And I don't know if I have this centered right. Can you see? And just line them all up and chop them down. I don't have very good knife handling skills, but whatever. Okay, you get the point. Anyway, I'll pause until I finish this up. Okay, so cut up the rest of the orange one and the yellow one. Just putting them both in one bowl and just like mix them around. My hands are clean, don't you worry. And then I'm going to just take out half of this and put it in a Ziploc, suck out the air, unless you have a machine, do that, whatever. Suck out the air and then roll it up and put it in the freezer. And I can use that in an omelet or I can use it whatever. But see how pretty? Alright. Okay, we're back at the stove and I have switched to this utensil because this is my favorite spatula. It's like a huge flat, it's kind of bent, but anyway, I can kind of chop up my meat real good. This is a lot of meat, but I have my big pasta pot here, so it'll fit. Anyway, thing to remember at this point is do not season your meat. You're going to be draining out a lot of the fat, and if you put your seasoning in now, you're going to end up draining all the seasoning out when you drain out your fat. So always wait until your meat is browned, your vegetables have been softened a little. I usually put it, you could actually, if you really want them to have some kind of texture to them. I guess you can put them in later on when you put in the beans, but I let them cook a little bit in the oil, so that way they kind of soften up a little bit. But so the point is, then when you're ready to put the beans in, that's when you're going to put your seasoning in and everything. So at this point, it's almost all cooked. There's a little bit pink left, but keep in mind this is going to cook for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. So if anything's pink right now, it's going to end up getting cooked. So it's not a big deal. The main thing that you're trying to do right now is break it up as small pieces as you want. Some people like big hunks of hamburger in their chili, but not me. I kind of want it to stretch because I want this chili to stretch for a while and be able to eat it for a long time. So anyway, at this point I'm just going to like make a little hole in the middle, move all the meat from the middle to the sides, and then I'm going to put my vegetable right in the middle there so that it'll get a chance to kind of cook in the oil. Welcome back, Sanders.
Hey.
Alright. And now, look how pretty that is. Ugh, can't show you, but anyway, yeah. Vegetables go in the middle. I'm going to put my garlic in right now. This pot is really full, so you don't have to worry about overcooking the garlic at this point. It's not going to burn or anything. So that goes in. I'm going to put a little bit of my tomato paste. That's going to, well, let me do this first. Yeah. Back up. Not tomato paste yet. Just continue cooking this until the vegetables have kind of softened up just a little bit. Mix it all around, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to spoon out a whole bunch of the fat. And I guess you know how to do that. I don't know if you know how to do that, but I just kind of turn the thing to the side, get a giant spoon. This is my favorite spoon because it's metal and it's like, it's kind of shallow, but it's wide. So it'll kind of spoon out a lot of oil. Dump that oil, and I'll come back when that's done. Okay, at the time that I put my vegetables in, I always put a big pinch of salt. I'm not going to need much salt in this recipe because I already have all my seasonings together in that one container. So, but for the purpose of kind of cooking down the vegetables, that looked like a lot, but it's just very little bit. My hands are small, so it's probably maybe a half a tablespoon that I just put in. But, you know, we got 3 pounds of meat here, so it'll stretch. Okay, I'm back. I have pulled out a little bit of the grease. It's kind of hard to do right now, but I try to do it later on when it's almost finished cooking. You can just kind of easily glide it off the top of the chili. This is getting nice and cooked well. I have the tomato paste. Now that I pulled that half of the grease out, I can do my seasonings. So I just give it like a good squirt of tomato paste, and I try to get it to go down onto the pan so that it will kind of warm up and mix around a little bit. What do I have? Yeah, this thing. So mix that in a little. Also, the same with the vegetables. You know, I made like a little hole in the middle so that there was like a pile of grease that I can put my ingredient into. So I'm doing the same thing again. I'm kind of like separating it, moving everything to the sides. And a lot of people don't know this stuff. Maybe you have or maybe you don't. But when you're putting in a seasoning into chili or something, these seasonings like cumin and stuff, paprika, garlic powder, adobo, even oregano, these seasonings are best when they're like a little bit toasted. So you want to put them into the hot grease stage. You don't want to put them into the liquid stage later on because they're not going to get like a toasted flavor. You know what I'm saying? It's hard to explain. But anyway, how much to use? I usually used about a tablespoon per pound of meat. I have almost 4 pounds of meat in here. I thought that it was 3 pounds, but it's actually 4 pounds almost. So I'm just going to put 3 tablespoons for now. You can always add more later. You just can't take away if you put too much. So I'm going to do 3 tablespoons for now. 3 big tablespoons. I'll cook that another 3 or 4 minutes so that it'll get the seasonings kind of like a toasted flavor. And then I'm going to just dump in all of my beans, which I had Harry put into a colander and rinse them out. And I'm going to also add my tomatoes. Now, important thing to know, with the beans I rinse them and I empty out the water, because the water, I don't know why, it's just kind of yuckier, but I need this tomato juice from the tomato can. So with the can of diced tomatoes, doesn't matter what brand you use, I don't really think, but I just found this one because it was no salt. So with the diced tomatoes, I leave the juice in because I kind of need that tomato juice to add to the flavor of the chili, because the chili is kind of like a mixture of, I don't know how to describe the liquid, and I don't want to describe it wrong anyway. This is smelling really nice and toasted. I can smell, it smells like right now like I am making tacos, like the taco meat flavor. So I'm going to go ahead and pour in my tomatoes and their juices. I'm going to add my 3 cans of beans. Doesn't look like it, but you can see the pinto, the black beans, the kidney beans, and I'm going to add liquid. Good. I forgot one ingredient. When I add the liquid, what I would add is, if I never have any chicken broth laying around, so, but I always have this caldo de pollo. It's like just like a powdered chicken broth. So I'm gonna take maybe a little tablespoon of this, because it's like 1 teaspoon is for like a cup, I believe. So I'm just going to do a little under a tablespoon, and then I'm going to fill the liquid up to where it's covering all of the stuff by about 1.5 inches. I'll show you. I mean, this is the part that's kind of hard to measure because it depends on how wide and big your pan is that you're using. But I'm going to fill the liquid up to the level of the meat and beans and everything. Let's see. I'll actually use a measuring cup. So, I got a measuring cup here that goes up to, what does this say? 4 cups? Focus. I'm going to just start filling it up with cold water, and I'll let you know how much I need. Alright, it's up to the 4-cup mark. Okay, so it's still everything is still above liquid level, so I'm going to go for another 2 cups. So let's say like 6 cups of chicken broth or 6 cups of water, whatever you prefer to use. Let's see. So about 2 more cups. A little over 2 cups. Perfect. 6 cups of liquid is probably right. And now I'm just going to bring this up to a boil. Once it starts boiling, I'm going to bring the temperature down to like a very low. Cover it most of the way. Like, when you put your lid on, you're basically, for this, just like spaghetti sauce, you don't want it splashing everywhere. So you want it to kind of cover so that it's not splashing all over the kitchen, but leave yourself a little bit of gap so that the steam can release and the water can evaporate, so that it'll kind of thicken up and condense. Alright? Okay, now while this thing is warming up or getting up to temperature, I keep this jar, it's a glass jar so it's heat proof, keep it nearby so that way I can like skim off the grease that starts to form at the top, because all the grease is going to rise, so you don't have to worry about it being so greasy with all that butter and oil that I put in here and all the grease that comes from the meat. That stuff is mostly going to be pulled out as it's cooking, so you're going to let this cook like maybe 1.5 hours to 2 hours. I'll let you know how long I end up going with this amount that I'm working with. So it's just like, just depends on the thickness that you want. And also, forgot to mention that this is 2 recipes instead of just 1. In order to make my chili, I have to make my, do I have it up here? My, no, I guess I don't have it written there. But I have a cornbread recipe. So I make my cornbread recipe, and then towards the end of the chili, when it's almost ready, I thicken it up with some of the, like a small spoon of the cornbread. I can't remember the word. Cornbread dough? Not dough. The raw stuff before I put it in the pan and bake it in the oven. The batter. There you go. So I take some of the batter and I put that batter into the chili, and then I mix it really, really well, and that gives it that corny, thickened flavor. I don't know, it does 2 things. It thickens it a little bit, but it also gives it that cornbready type of whatever. Maybe that's my own little weird thing I do, but so there you go. Okay, I'm sorry, I found my cornbread recipe. So while this is cooking, have somebody else watch it, teach them how to like skim off the fat. Bless you. Teach them how to skim off the fat, and run to the grocery store and get these things. So pause right here. Well, the glare. There you go. You got boxes of Jiffy Mix. I know, I'm just going with the box, but I changed the box recipe to my own recipe. You got 2 eggs, 1/3 cup of white sugar. You don't have to use the sugar, but I do because that's the way my husband likes it. 1/3 cup of whole milk, 2/3 cups of sour cream, 1 can of sweet corn drained, and I'll show you how to do all that when it comes to it. So pause right here, write all that down, go to the grocery store, get all those things. I'm sorry I'm sending you twice, but maybe if you watch the video through first. Anyway, see you back here when this is almost finished. Okay, since I am going to be breaking for like an hour and a half, I have to stop the video here because I can't just keep it paused. I need to use my phone. I need to have a life. So hopefully I can tape these 2 videos together. Otherwise, please watch the next video for the rest of the recipe. Thank you.